So I think now I'd like to move on because we've been uh, inundated with a lot of questions for you.
Oh
You know,
boy, haven't done a
don't you
Q&A.
worry.
Haven't done a Q&A since 2017.
Well, we'll be thorough, but we won't be too thorough. You will get some sleep tonight. Um, so I think a natural place to start is, well, simply your relationship to the fandom. Because Michael, outside your work on TV, you're obviously really well known for your work with animation and model building on YouTube and social media, and a lot of people, myself included, probably first came to know you through that earlier model work. So could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I didn't join YouTube until 2008, but before that, I was online and making videos for people to see. But I was on a different YouTube channel. In fact, I was sharing a YouTube channel with my an old friend of mine, Chris, or Casey Jr. as he's known online. So most of the videos on his channel were done by me. And it was more or less just to help him get on with, get started with his YouTube channel and that there because he wanted to know more about doing that sort of stuff. And when we got a few videos up there, I kind of thought to myself, well, maybe it's time I actually started doing my own YouTube channel because there's some stuff I would like to have a go at doing and uploading my own time as well. So I started doing my own YouTube videos and decided to do showcasing of some of my model projects and that there, which started off my workbench videos with the slideshow photos and the soundtrack of Sonic CD playing in the background. Boy, that's time to go back. That's looking back now. Still hearing that tune, by the way. And then that would then result in me in Model Train Forum, my first online forum, and that's what gave me a starting point is to learn how to use an online forum to showcase my stuff and also to communicate with people who inspired me, like Gavin Rose, Henry Blue, Simon Martin, etc. And then when MTF closed down, Permanent Way started up, Permanent Way Model Forum started up, and I joined up there. I got to learn more advanced railway modeling at the same time. I then also joined up with the Sudrian Model Buffer Stop Forums, I think it was called for its duration. I think it became one of its higher members of staff for a while. But then it got closed down for I don't think lack of attendances. To which point there wasn't really much activity happening on Permanent Way. So I think I was persuaded by my good friend Tom Foster to join SAF in 2010. So that would then result in being on SAF, and I've been there for these last 10 years, sharing my knowledge and experience with everybody. All the while, my YouTube channel was um, growing with more videos and tutorials and various projects that I've been working on
Of
ever
course.
since. And that's how it all began, really.
But that work wasn't just marked by Thomas, of course.
No, I
There's
also
also the miniature railway adventures. So what role did that?
yes, yeah, Miniature Railway Adventures. That was a project I started off in 2008 because myself and Casey Jr. We did this part one Thomas video called Huey Who, which was you were listening to the Royal Engine. The Queen was going to return to Sodor again for another, and the engines didn't know who was going to be pulling the Royal Train, and we didn't reveal who this was. In fact, the first part was basically just everybody getting ready, and that was it. We just ended there. But back then, loads of people, the audience back then were not really as to what they are today. In fact, back then they were more or less like an angry. Where's the next part? We want the next part. Why you don't like what? Why is it not released here? And we were kind of like, well, give us a chance to make the damn thing. So, but at that time, I was doing my GCSE, and so I had too much work to go at making this here. So I only had I think I had like about a weekend available. So I thought to myself, hey, well, hang on, I've got this idea for a story that we can give the audience just to explain to them what's holding up the production. So we thought we'd come up with a behind the scenes story of you know the cast and crew, what's been going on that's been delaying the second part, and that resulted in Miniature Railway Adventures. And when we finished that episode, that silly part one video, there was something in that there that both me and Casey actually thought, you know, I kind of enjoyed doing this sort of thing, like voicing a character based off me, and I would like to we would like to expand that a bit more, give these characters light. So we started writing a sequel to the story, which then became a whole series of stories, and then, like I said, that started Miniature Railway Adventure. So we pretty much forgot about the Thomas project until we brought it up every once in a while. We're like, "Do you think we should bring? Do you think we should start making it? Nah, let's this Miniature Railway story. It's more important." So Miniature Railway Adventure started was broadcasted in September 2008, and it got its own YouTube channel in 2013 with some new stories and a new recording format where instead of having a live full cast, we just have myself narrating the stories, and it's been like that since. Like, and I'm still writing the stories to this day, and I've grown very attached to it. but but yeah, people often used to ask me, like, what is it that got me into like Miniature Railway Adventures was basically my artist palette. Really, I just what you see in any of my stories is basically me just trying out different types of writing styles, see what works and what doesn't. Sometimes, if there's a story of Thomas that didn't, I think, well, it didn't. This plot doesn't suit this characters. It might be useful for Miniature Railway Adventures to use that. So that could be a bit of a scavenger hunt for everyone. Could have been a story for Thomas. It's actually made into a story. So who knows?
And of course, that's true now, certainly. But Michael, all those years ago, going way back to 2008, and Thomas and Sonic as well.
Oh yeah.
Did you know back then that you wanted to go into writing?
Not really. I took quite a lot of it. I took quite a lot of passion with in school. We used to do poetry class, and I always found in that there, and I like writing like my own stories. In fact, that was something we used to do in school. We used to write up our stories where we used to have members of our class be part of this story adventure, and we used to try and see who can write the best adventure. Mine weren't always the best ones. We used to try and come up. I try to keep up with the trend of the classroom, but somehow, due to mishearings that it always resulted in something goes completely wrong or it didn't sound right. Although sometimes even my stories would actually result in me actually reenacting Thomas stories. In fact, there was even one time I actually did ask my teacher, "How do you spell smithereens?" And she was like, "What?" I was only 6 years old at the time. I says, "How do you spell smithereens?" She's like, "You're too young to know that word." This is where you heard that word. I says, "Thomas." And he's like, "Well, that's very strange. He should be learning that word now."
Well, absolutely. I mean, the true mark of someone who's fond of Thomas,
I
is
know.
is to know words like that and sagacity,
I know.
all those at a young age. But I suppose the interesting thing as well, Michael, is that you didn't enter television first through Thomas. In fact,
Oh.
initially, I believe you joined through Pablo.
Yes. This started back in early 2016. I was coming back after my Christmas break from university, and I had this class mentor who comes in and helps me out with various work tasks that I've been given, just to help me simplify the workload so I can actually get a better understanding as to what is need to be delivered. Because sometimes I don't really quite fully understand what is to be um, put forward in front of me, so I would need some extra help. But this guy, I told him at one stage I did voice work online. I did miniature railway adventures and that there, and he said that he saw this advert that CBBS were looking for voice actors for this new children's program called Pablo, and it's all about this young boy with autism. He says, "Well, you've got Asperger's, you've got a mild case of Asperger's, and that definitely might help you out here. I mean, in fact, you also and you like doing voice acting out there. This would be a good chance to do it there." So I thought, well, I suppose I could try it out. I suppose. I mean, at first I wasn't so sure if I should do it or not. I says, well, it would be nice, like, to work on CBs and that. There, when's the deadline? In about half an hour. Well, get on the phone quickly and get put my name down. So that's how it all happened. Within half an hour, I was on the list of people to audition. And later that evening, like after I briefly explained to my parents, like, what I'd done. They were like, "Okay, yeah, okay, you go and do that." Had no idea what was going to happen, and I started auditioning for Pablo with the characters and lines that they gave me to read for, and it was the orangutan Tang that they liked the voice I gave him for, which was actually an impression of an impression uh, of somebody doing an impression of one of their work colleagues. In fact, it's basically me impersonating Robert Llewellyn impression of Craig Charles. That's basically what it is. That's Tang's voice, because I remember listening to this audiobook that he did called "The Man in the Rubber Mask," which is all about him, his time on Red Dwarf and that there. And there's a scene where he mimics Craig Charles' voice, and I just love that impression. So that's the first thing that came to my mind when I saw this character design. I thought, yeah, he sounds a bit like Craig Charles here, so I'll do this kind of voice. They were like, oh yeah, definitely, that's the voice. That's the voice we want. And so I became Tang.
Well, it, it,
And
it seems a very suitable voice because, as far as I can tell, Tang is a bit of a goofball character.
he is, he
um,
is.
but I feel compelled to ask then, what's the relationship between voice acting and writing for you? Is it weird that you ended up writing lines perhaps for yourself as well as actors that you will have known very well?
Well, it's sometimes if I could actually just say the line out loud and see, does that work? Does that not? Yeah, just redo this again, maybe just to see if I can get this sound right. Or maybe sometimes I would practice the line delivery. Can I actually make Tang say this line in maybe in this certain pitch or certain way? I would try it, and if it doesn't work, I'll just change the line around. It makes it easier for me to say.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, just write down what comes to mind, really.
So, how did you move from the voice acting side of things into not only doing that but also writing for
Um,
Pablo?
this happened during the record, like halfway is one. The producer of the program, Gronny McGuinness, she approached me after I recorded today's recording of Tang, and she says, "Michael, do you ever do writing?" I says, "Yeah, I do this online thing called It's Railway. It's just my own fan fiction thing." She says, "Well, we would like to see if you'd like to come up with some ideas for stories for Pablo, because we want to try and get everybody on board and make sure that these stories are based off actual experiences that people with autism actually had, just because that's something that um, we want people to show and to witness that these are the kind of problems and issues that people with autism would have, and it's best to hear it through their own words." So I says, "Yeah, that's no problem." So I was then introduced to Brenner through Skype call, and Andrew came over to Northern Ireland to see me and everybody else during a get together, and he had asked me beforehand to prepare some story ideas, and I gave him a whole lot of cue cards that I had. I had a habit of buying a bundle loads of cue cards for writing notes out there, so I wrote down a whole list of ideas on these cue cards. I just gave them to him. I says, "Look, Andrew, I don't really know which ones are the best ones here. So if there's anything in there that you think is worth for an episode of Pablo, just take your pick." And he went through them all, and he picked two of them in the end, which turned out to be the episodes "The Lift" and "The Book Spider." And these are all based off personal experiences that I had. So when I told him the backgrounds of it there, he was like, "Oh, these are definitely these have to be made into an episode." So that's how it all started off. And like I said, from it went during our watch of Roll Engine, like when I started writing the first story of Pablo, like I just wrote. I didn't know what way it was going to be written. Television scripts are written, so I just wrote down how I wrote Military Railway Adventures stories, and just write a normal Pablo story. And Andrew got back to me. And he's like, "Wow, this is actually amazing. This is how I literally have spaces written what I've just read." And I was like, "Is it any good?" He's like, this is more than good. It's like reading an actual children's novel. It's actually amazing." So I was like, "Well, I didn't expect that kind of reaction. I was expecting a bit more of a, you know, this is not good. Do more. Do better, like a Gordon Ramsay retort or some sort." Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I was very surprised by that. That's how it all started off with me, like writing, and if we're working on like a serious project for Pablo and out there, like get me on board and get me into uh, the full swing of it all.
What I want to ask then is because you talk about these episodes coming from your own experiences, and also about the writing team's approach to um, uh, get voices writing that feel authentic and speak to authentic experiences. So,
Yeah,
do you have any thoughts on that when writing a program like Pablo? Thomas aside for a moment.
yeah, because
Yeah,
Pablo is something. It's a new experience because from some people, from what I've seen from reviews, it's basically a program where you actually do get a proper experience as to how or how they speak and how they deal with certain situations they would come across, and having both the cast and the writers to be on the spectrum, something amazing, really, because there are some really talented people that I've worked alongside with. Some of them I have helped are helping me with various projects here and there, and they're just an absolute amazing team, really. And every time we're involved in a new project, we just get on like a house on fire.
and is that important across from Pablo to Thomas to
Well, yeah,
have that kind of
because
support base around you and your collaborators also? That's why.
yeah, because I mean, it was because Pablo was a good way of to help me get an idea what life is like working in the television industry, and how to interact with members of the crew. And it's exactly the same with Thomas. We just get on like great, like good friends, like pitching an idea for a new series or new stories and out there, and we always encourage each other's ideas to be looked at and to expand ever more. Because I think, for example, like a Great Little Railway Show, I think that was one idea I was saying during a break one time to Becky Overton. I just says like I just briefly mentioned to her that I did like railway modeling out there, and I said like I had this one idea, maybe have a model railway show on Sodor, and she's like, oh my god, that's so cool. She's like we have to do this here. So when we go back into the workshop, she says she calls at the end. She says, "Yeah, Michael's got a brilliant idea for an episode." Like, well, it's just I thought it'd be a nice idea where you have a model railway show on sort of. Oh my god, I love it. We gotta make this episode. Okay, I did not expect this, but that's okay. But yeah, it just shows you like how very enthusiastic that is with his ideas. So no, not all our ideas get wasted. There, lots of ideas are all forward, and we make sure we have exploit the possibilities of making
Yes.
and to make good, both Pablo and Thomas.
So
So
let's talk Thomas then. Okay, so you've been working on Pablo. You've done 2 series of Pablo, I believe.
yes,
And then you get involved with Thomas as well. So how does that happen, Michael? What's the story?
well, this happened in 17, a year after I signed up for Pablo. We're working on Pablo for a year now, and I was starting my final year of my second half of final year university. And back then, I wasn't really the person who I am today because during that whole period, I went through a very tough time with university. University was giving me a whole lot of issues with workload, demands for certain ways of how work should be presented, um, misguided information or information not even being there, wasted time of being called up for class when it wasn't even on or cancelled at the last minute. So I was kind of like at a near breaking point. So if somebody was to like randomly ask me a question, I would sometimes retort in a very angry manner. So it wasn't really what I had to be up early and spend late nights working out there. So, but anyway, during this time here, I was trying to get over the grief of the death of my grandfather, who passed away during the start of that year. And out of the blue, Andrew gives me a call. Hey, are you busy right now? And I says, yeah, I'm in the middle of getting my work done here because I'll be free and uh till May at least. And he's like, oh right, okay. It's just that we're working on this new project here with some um, for a new television series, and we're very short on writers, and we want to know if you're interested. I just said, yeah, no, that's fine, that's fine. wasn't really thinking straight at the time there because I was still thinking about work. And I says, yeah, sure. I'll give you a call back in May. Is it all right? Is it all right if you can wait until May and I'll get back to you? And he's like, yeah, that's no problem at all. I was like, great. I'll talk to you then. So not knowing that this was Andrew asking me to write for Thomas. Um, so after the work was all done, I took about a week or so to recover from my university depression, as I call it, try and get back to my old self again. And I remembered that Andrew was looking at me. So I said, right, I better call Andrew. I called him up and I says, hey, Andrew, you asked me for a favor. Yeah. Would you mind coming to London very quickly? London? Well, okay. You could just talk to me over Skype, but okay. So he invites me over to London and he invites me out to a Pizza Express for lunch. So we're sitting there having lunch and I says, so what's all this about, Andrew? What's this whole... He says, right, well, I've been talking to my friends Amy Q and Michaela Waters about you and Pablo and talked about your writing and that there. So he just says like, we're talking about your work on Pablo and what I thought of it as well. Let's just put it bluntly. How would you like to write some... I just froze on the spot. Like, I was drinking Pepsi Max at the time, so the glass was dead from the brim of the glass. And I was like, what? Wait, what? Did he just ask me that? And so I swallowed my mouthful. Okay, what should I say? First thing that in my mind was saying, God, just say yes. Or part of me says, no, just maybe say no. Maybe it's might not be right. To which I then said, are you sure? I'm definitely sure, Michael. I'm sure. Okay, he's sure. Okay, how do I respond to that there? I looked around. I was kind of nervous. I didn't know what to say. And to which point I generally just said, but why me, Andrew? Why me? With a wee bit of a whimper in my voice, I have to admit. I was like, but why me, Andrew? Why me? Out of all the Thomas fans in the world, why have you chosen me to do this? Because I was definitely scared. I was really scared that this was being put towards me. So he's like, well, we think you're the best choice, really, because I know you know more about Thomas than I do, and I love your style of writing. So we thought this would be good to bring into Thomas. So what do you say? You up for it? I thought, well, I don't know, really. It's then I still wasn't sure if I could write it or not. So I said, give me till the end of the lunch and I'll finish. And so we had our lunch, so forth, and I was so, oh God, what am I gonna do? I don't know what am I gonna say? What's gonna be put forward to me if I do say yes, and if I say no, I'm gonna lose a great opportunity or miss a childhood dream. So once we had a lunch there, we got ourselves packed up, and we're heading out the door, and he says, "So, have you decided yet?" I says, "Well, Andrew, like I said, it's been a very long time since I last read Thomas' story, but I can't promise you anything good, but I'll give it a try." And he's like, "Fine, that's great. I'll let you know how we get on. I'll give you all the details once you get back. And welcome to the team." So that was it. And on the plane home, I thought to myself, "Oh my God, I am writing for Thomas. I am working for Thomas now. What the hell am I going to do?" So yeah, I was very shocked and also scared, and then I had to keep thinking to myself, right, well, you have to keep a low profile of this for a while because you're already known online, so you best not tell anybody until then. And so that's what happened. So
Yeah. And how do you approach, because that's such an extraordinary, situation to be able to write for something that you've grown up loving, being a really important part of your own childhood. So,
hmm,
how do you navigate that when working on a show like Thomas and Friends?
I just basically just try and look back at some reference material. Really, I just look back at see at how some of this is written and maybe listen to watch some various episodes and just try and get an idea as to how each episode is portrayed, and then just try and capture that style, but also with a little bit of a you know my own little twist in there as well, my own little uh, style, I suppose.
Yes, of
But
course, and you talked about that novel approach earlier,
yeah,
really getting down the atmosphere. So, what's your own approach when? Making a Thomas story for television.
Right. Well, first of all, is what I do is that I basically write down just a whole list of maybe characters or stuff that we have on the show. Maybe if there's a character that I've been asked to write about, I would write their name down, then write down a whole list of bio descriptions all about them and so forth. Then try and think of a way of what can we do with this character based on their bio that would be good for the audience to learn more about them, and do some research online, and then just try and write down just plot out um, a small brief story plot, and then write that up as a premise, which is like novel format, as I mentioned, and then submit it to the head writer and say, right, I've got this idea for a new Thomas story. Would you mind having a look at it and give me your views on it? And it will then go back and forth. It will be passed on to Ian, see what he thinks, and if it's any good, it would then go into an episode, and that's how it usually goes, really.
And how do you yourself, Michael, when do you know that a story has legs, that it's going to go from an idea to something that you could tangibly watch on television?
It all depends on exactly what the idea is, and maybe there's something I've seen in real life that I think, yes, this is a great idea for a Thomas story. That's definitely worth exploring. And like, for example, Free the Roads. That was actually an idea that I just came up with on the spot during the Series 23 workshop. And I just suggested to Ian, and he just exploded with enthusiasm. He was like, "Oh my god, yes, the UN would love that good moral about the importance of clean water." And I thought, yeah, actually, that actually does have a good way of working around that there. And plus, it also we get to incorporate an old character that we have a render for, and we get more use out of them.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
so that's how that story came about.
It is really interesting to hear, as an outsider, that you create the story and then people talk a lot about these UN goals, but it's more that they naturally find their way into the plots that you're coming up with. It perhaps doesn't necessarily drive the idea. You come with the idea, and then it
Yeah,
finds its own relevance.
yeah, because I think like for Free the Roads, I just basically just sometimes I always just ask myself a question, saying like, right, what have we not seen from this character? What's something we've not explored yet? And with Bulgy's case, I thought to myself, well, what would happen if Bulgy got his way? And then that's how the episode came out of the blue, really.
Yeah,
And it just
yeah.
worked from there, as you
I mean,
do.
it's interesting as well thinking about this process because often it perhaps seems a little elusive if you're not familiar with it. But I know a lot of people have asked about writer's block because that's quite a universal thing, I imagine.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Do you get it? What's the process for you with that?
Yeah, the last time I got writer's block was back in December last year, and it's not a nice, I can tell you. Especially when you're on a deadline for to get a project finished by the end of the week. Um, so yeah, sometimes I get writer's block and it wouldn't pass me by for maybe a couple of days. And how I deal with it is first of all, stare blankly at the screen for a while in case something comes to mind. If that doesn't work, scream into a pillow for half an hour. That sometimes helps, but not the best cure. Um, but then I would sometimes just maybe just take a break for a while and just exercise my mind for a bit. Go outside, get some inspiration for a bit, and then somehow inspiration would strike, uh, and the idea would suddenly just come straight and just hit me on the spot of the head, which would hurt every now and again. But it does help, and the blocks lifted, and once I write down that idea, I suddenly pick up the pace of my writing, and suddenly I'm back on track again
Yeah.
and making good headway.
Would you give that as advice then to create a bit of distance between yourself and the story if you get stuck? Is that a useful way of dealing with it normally?
Yeah, because sometimes I would take breaks every now and again just to go out and maybe just get some air into my lungs over there, and just think back every now and again, like to where it is I'm stuck on, saying like, right, okay, what can I do? And sometimes I would actually speak out loud, which sounds strange, but it does help. I would just speak out loud to myself, just question myself to say, right, okay, we have this character in this situation. What can we do to get him out of it here? He can't there, right? Maybe he could do this. No, no, maybe it's a bit too complicated. But maybe it would sound complicated at first, but then it would have its advantages and so forth. And then the ideas would then suddenly be coming at me again, and I would be like, "Yes, we're on a roll. We're on a roll here. Get back to the computer and start writing." I don't know if
Uh,
this works. I don't know if this works for everybody else, but it helps for me.
Indeed, yeah. Well, Michael, you've been credited on almost 10 Thomas episodes now, getting that way. And I think what a lot of people would like to know is which one was your favourite, if there is one?
My favorite episode that I worked on.
Yeah,
Um,
I suppose that could be, the best, the experience you enjoyed the most in terms of creating all the episodes, or you know, one that you're really proud of.
well, it'll have to be a tie between Hunt the Truck and Roll Engine because Hunt the Truck was basically me just like getting started into the series, and I actually did really enjoy the feel of writing a story about Edward and out there, and the story plot just went together so well. I really did enjoy that. The Royal Engine was I kind of enjoyed for the challenge, really, because sometimes when I write some of my scripts, they sometimes go a wee bit overboard and maybe over like time frame out there. So quite a lot of stuff had to be cut back again. But with this here, I have more time to work off, so I find that more enjoyable to work on, really, and also expand the characters a bit more and give their own personality time to shine, as
Yeah,
it be.
I suppose that must have been a slightly different experience then with Royal Engine. It being 20 minutes, you get a little more time to play with stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we've covered a little bit of the experience of seeing that first episode go out live, but nowadays perhaps you're a little bit more experienced with the whole, the movement from idea to writing to production to viewing it. So nowadays, what's it like seeing an episode go out?
Well, watching like when I watch any of my episodes, in Pablo's case, I don't get that much frustrated because it's still a brand new show, and I do look forward to watching the episodes because I just enjoy seeing like how the stories come to life. But in Thomas's case, I do feel like there is a bit of responsibility I have to take, like to make sure that the episode is enjoyed by both audiences. So it's more or less like with Pablo's case, I'm absolutely fine, but then in Thomas's case, it's more or less like how's it going to turn out? Is it going to be good or bad? Just how am I going to deal with this? So
Yeah, yeah,
it's kind of like that there. So yeah, every time I watch a new episode that I've written of Thomas coming on TV and that there, I get a wee bit anxious.
Is it useful then to remove yourself from the fandom side of things when being part of the creation of these episodes? Because obviously you're quite well known for introducing a lot of shout outs to the fans, which people adore. But yeah, also do you have to take a few steps away when creating things?
Not really, because I mean, I do. There is a lot of fan I get quite a lot of inspiration from, and I enjoy seeing the creativity that goes out there. I mean, there's some fantastic fan content that I've seen, and the fans themselves. I mean, they're really good people to interact with. In fact, every time I go over to see the Star Tugs exhibition, it's pretty much my way of getting out to meet everybody and also to interact with my friends at long last because I barely have any across over here. So it's my only time during the year where I actually get to hang out with those who I definitely call friends,
Yeah, yeah.
close friends.
But I suppose now, as you say, with these writers' rooms, you've kind of developed a friendly relationship with all the other writers on the show.
Yes, definitely. I mean, Becky Overton and David Moore have now become like close companions now, and when we meet up with each other, we always greet each other like as we normally do when we uh, start out the series. I mean, normally you would when you see an old friend that they haven't seen for maybe a year or so, you would say like, oh, how's it going out there? With me, Becky and Davey, we just more or less scream at each other and go, how are you? It's so long, look, fantastic out there. How are you? We're always screaming at each other, which does raise a few heads every now and again. So like, okay, what's going on over at that table or so forth. But yeah, definitely, like we get on definitely like a house on fire.
Terrific. Yeah.
So
Um, I suppose another thing to ask then is what things do you like to draw from? Is there anything you find yourself going back to as a writer? Any TV shows outside of Thomas, perhaps, that are really useful?
I like to take some inspiration from old school television because that was kind of what I was brought up on. Because as a child from the '90s, I surprisingly I grew up with not only shows from the '90s but shows from the '80s and even the '60s, and that's the style of storytelling there back then. I mean, yeah, some of it like wouldn't be suitable to recount nowadays, but back then, like I actually when I watching them, I thought they would just be absolutely hilarious, and sometimes I will try and maybe add a few references now and again. Like for example, um, I think in the episode "Out of Sight," people often think it's a nod to Lord of the Rings when Brenda says "None shall pass," when really it's actually a nod to Monty Python. So it's basically me just going, "Ha! You thought it was a reference to that, but no, it's a reference to this one." so, um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I do like to take like good inspiration from various TV shows. Like I think also like one good example in Roll Engine when Beresford is giving Thomas directions, the dialogue between the two of them is actually from an inspiration from the Chuckle Brothers, where if they're out driving the Chuckmobile or the quad tandem, I think it's what you call them. Um, Paul will be looking at a map and Barry's driving. He would just say, like, right, turn left at the next junction. Right. No, left. Right. No, left. Okay. And that's where I would get that sort of thing. So it's just like these school, like, stage show jokes out there that you would get at pantomimes out there. I like to incorporate in. It always gets a good laugh from children's shows out there and
Yeah. Yeah.
incorporate that old school stuff.
But it's interesting then with Thomas, don't you think, that it has such a relationship to the 20th century,
Hmm.
and of course it features steam engines, something that you wouldn't really see out and about nowadays.
Yeah.
However, it's still enduring today. So does the show need to keep with the times, or does it also need to hold on to that appeal originally? What's your
Well,
perspective
I
on that?
think in terms of Thomas Natter, because it's set in a period when certain things like I said, when I asked Ian, like, what year is the series in, he said somewhere between 1940s and 1950s. During that time, like, different things of life was being looked at. Like during the 60s, there was the age of the space race and that there, and all these people visiting the moon out there. And so you do often see like there are chances like they're in rockets or something like that, but that's like that's trying to keep in time with the period as to where the series take place in. So we have to make sure we stay within our limits as to where certain things are happening or taking place. So, but we also like sometimes we have to, if need be, we would probably have to maybe make nods to references to current stuff, but try and make it feel as if it's been done in the '60s in a way.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like Thomas's own version of the future. How interesting. I
Hmm.
mean, coupled with that, I suppose you've also got the changeover of the Steam team recently. We've had Henry and Edward depart from Tidmouth Sheds,
Hmm.
and we've been introduced to Nia and Rebecca. Now, it's a little bit contentious, so I don't really want to investigate it in terms of your own opinion of that. What I would like to know is what's it like writing for characters like Rebecca and Nia, who are um, perhaps have to fill certain obligations that Edward and Henry might have had, but are also very much characters in their own right. Is it an interesting process making them part of the old family?
Yeah, because I mean, we have to make sure that they're characters that people will have to get used to get to know because they're brand new characters and members of the Steam team. So at first, like in their introductions, like they are finding uh the first few days difficult to get used to, but then once they find their steps, find way of fitting in, then it's easy enough. But we also have to make sure that each member of the Steam team has their own personality that makes them special and makes them, um, like I said, special for the audience to interact with and to relate to as well. Because like Nia's case, she's a newcomer to the island from another country, so she will find things to uh, take take in and to get used to settle in there. But then she also likes to express her how she deals with certain situations that provides a good use of knowledge for the engines to think of and to use to for their advantage for doing their work on the railway. And Rebecca, she's just a character who likes everything about life and likes everybody to see the positive of all the disadvantages that they have, which just makes all the grey skies turn blue. So
Yeah. I suppose bringing them into the fray also makes us look at the original characters slightly differently because we're given
yeah,
new perspectives.
yeah. So the same character who
Yeah.
has new views on
And
certain
yet,
things.
yeah. But of course, that doesn't mean that Edward and Henry are forgotten because I remember you mentioning to me there was actually an emphasis from you to write an Edward story.
When I heard that Edward was leaving the shed, well, I thought, to myself, well, it'd be nice to have an episode that we actually have during his time away from Timber Sheds and what's life happening on his branch line. So I thought, yeah, just having him interacting with Bill and Ben is a good start.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Michael, your move into TV has been really inspirational for a lot of fans.
Thank you.
And I think one of the things that I keep hearing people asking is, what advice would you give to anyone with their own aspirations of getting involved in TV, in film, perhaps even in Thomas?
Well, first of all, if you ever want to sure you keep an eye out for advert that you may find regarding to any positions of work in the television industry that you have a profession in, and make sure you meet deadlines and so forth, and do whatever you can to try and make sure you please these the television people that you're definitely the person for the job, and if you get the job like that, there enjoy every moment of it. Here, yes, the challenges face along, but it's the journey that matters, and you'll learn a lot of helpful information during then, and you'll get to meet some really interesting and very enthusiastic people as well, which you can share a passion with as well. In terms of Thomas out there, for me, it was more or less I was just asked to come on the team just by chance, really, or they were probably short of writers, or I've no idea really, because I think Andrew just wanted to do a good favor for me because he heard I was a he thought it'd be nice for me to get an experience of what life is like working on Thomas. So he did that really nice thing for me. Um, but yeah, definitely keep an eye out for any vacancies for working out there, be it Thomas or other children's programs, because the world doesn't always have to revolve around Thomas these days. There's other children's shows out there that definitely need attention looked at, that needs to get their feet off the ground and to help them get an audience. So definitely pursuing that.
Thank you very much for that.
No worries.
And across Pablo and Thomas, you've really shown your stripes for children's animation and children's television or family
Mhm.
television. I think it would be important before we go to ask you, what do you think is the strength of that kind of television? Where is it at the moment? What's your perspective on it, having worked in it?
Well, there's a lot of good shows out there now that I've witnessed that a lot of children seem to really enjoy, and I tend to see exactly what it is that they really enjoy. Though sometimes there are some times where I would question the new trend with the new generation. I think I remember saying to you earlier on, I was taking a break one time and I was looking at a toy shop and I saw this new trend
Oh
of
no.
yeah, there's this new somehow this toys where a character does his business, and I thought, is this what the new generation's after? But But then it's only for Toyland now. Well, they couldn't really do a children's series out of that, but it's just me talking nonsense. But definitely, like in terms of other like proper telling seriously out there, but children's shows these days they have a lot of imagination just to enhance different story styles and bring all these new characters to life, and so it's hard sometimes to try and accept like the thing, but at the same time you seem to welcome it with open arms when you actually get down to actually buy it. Because I mean, I think I was like that at first when I first encountered Adventure Time for the first time. I thought, well, it seems to be okay. It doesn't really. It just seems like a bit of a childish show in some cases. But then, as I started to watch the series go on, it's actually getting a bit more intense. Really, this is actually quite enjoyable, very suspenseful at times. And so, yeah, that's why I kind of get with new children's shows out there. But it all depends as to what the target audience wants and what theme that the companies that the broadcasters are looking for these days. I'd say that's definitely something that I too have to keep in mind when working for certain companies.
And what do you think they're looking for nowadays compared to perhaps all the television that we all grew up with?
Well, I'd say in these days, like they still want you, but they also want to bring back that old spark that inspired them young. That will help make the new generation enjoy new forms of television, but with a nice hint of like it's basically just like a regenerative version of old school television, but it still has a little bit of old school there, just to give it its charm and style.
Michael, to close, if you could say a few words to your 15-year-old self, what would you say?
First thing I would say to him is get off that computer. You should stop playing Simpsons Head Run and go and do your homework. But in serious, like, I would actually say to him, I know you're feeling very down right now at the moment with school out there, but trust me, all this hard work you're going to be indulged with, it's going to lead to a good future. And make sure you work hard, be positive, and trust me, things are going to are going to work out okay for you. And I speak that to not only myself but also to the generation and also to you folks at home who are looking to pursue your own ideas.
Michael,
Something good will come through.
thank you very much for your insight and your time and your generosity. It's been really wonderful watching these episodes.
Thank you indeed. I've enjoyed it definitely.
And learning a bit more about you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was fun. Really enjoyable. Well done, guys. It was really nice to be able to hear all the ins and outs, the stories, and how they came to be. I'm sure it's an eye-opener for everyone. Furthermore, I hope everybody enjoyed listening and watching along with us. Thank you to everyone that tuned in, and thank you to everyone who sent in their questions. Just another quick reminder, if you could spare a minute to look into and hopefully donate to Autism NI, also known as Northern Ireland's Autism Charity, because it's a great charity. They're doing a lot to help autistic people and parents, so definitely go and check it out. There'll be a link to it in the tweet along discussion thread or Michael Wright thread on the Discord, and additional links will be in the YouTube description below. Once again, thank you all for coming along, and I hope you all have a lovely evening. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.